as a medium, being present with the soup of consciousness, as I often call it, is a part of the process. It involves, of course, meditation. And then when giving readings to people, it requires being fully present with all that is, with all of the energies of all of the beings who have ever existed, so that you can bring through or recognize in the moment an energy that would like to communicate with somebody. So I spend a lot of time thinking about consciousness, and lately I've really been considering consciousness. And so I connected with the energy of Francis Crick today, because he played an enormous role in the research of consciousness and in the study of consciousness and trying to give it a scientific path in order to explain it. And I wanted to hear what he had to say about consciousness itself. And the most important thing that came through is that there is obviously an incredible divide between science and spirituality. And I feel that that divide might be the thing that is creating the veil between us and full understanding, both of what consciousness is and also what existence is, and creating the veil between us and being able to connect with spirit in a more whole way. And a thing that also came through, interestingly, from a person like Crick, who would never have probably even given the space to think about this when he was in the body, is the idea that there are a lot of perhaps misguided, but maybe intuitively pushed individuals who are railing against science, particularly those who are religious. And I'm thinking of, for instance, people who believe that the earth is flat, and people who believe that science is dangerous and is against religion and spirituality, and so push against it, vaccine issues and things like that. And I'm not suggesting that all of that behavior and influence is necessarily a good thing, but I do wonder if it's a response to this divide between science and spirituality that needs to be ended. We need to marry the two in order to find the real answers to things. And I think part of the issue is that historically, there has been black and white thinking, generally speaking, of course, but also within science. And long ago, it was decided that everything is material, and we have become a materially based society, especially in the West, but just generally as well. And that's not only because the material can be empirically proven in science, but I think it's also because of the fear of the power of Christianity way back when religion had the power to burn people at the stake for believing something that went outside the bounds of religion. And so it was safer to be material. It was dangerous to swim in the unconscious as a scientist. And so that might be rooted in the DNA now and something that we need to expand out of. But another aspect of science that has been affected by this are the theories of consciousness. Starting with Frick, there was the belief that consciousness was purely assigned to the physical, that consciousness dwelled in the physical, dwelled in the brain. Frick even started his studies by looking at the ways that sight brings consciousness into being, that when our eyes are closed, we are not conscious, and when they're open, we are. And that simply isn't true, and we know that now. But it was beginning from the top down with the study of consciousness. But the problem was that emotions weren't given the due that they deserve. Emotions, which were considered feminine, very black and white thinking, thought was rational and was masculine and valuable, and emotion was feminine and intuitive and not valuable at all. So emotions were assigned as material as well. They were assigned as needed for survival and for biological imperative, but not as having any value in any other way. And now we know that Feeling is being. We don't think, therefore we are. We feel, therefore we are. And so, because of the black and white thinking about all of these things, the study of consciousness and the understanding of consciousness has stalled. And we're kind of stuck in a quagmire of theories about what it is, because researchers are reluctant to marry the two aspects of the same coin, science and spirituality. The veil is consciousness in this way. Seeing is being blind, in fact. And to see beyond the veil, we have to expand consciousness into something else, something entirely new. And this requires an evolution in thinking, in being, in material expansion, as in evolution and developing new ways of surviving physically. And it means looking beyond the strictures of what can be proven and to swim in the consciousness and in the spiritual wisdom, as well as in the empirical data, to consider the fact of spiritual connection as part of the study of consciousness and of being as a whole, to listen to the mystics as well as the materialists, to meld the two. Science is beginning to realize this, for sure. There's no question that examination of things that are unseen is becoming more and more prevalent in science. But it just needs a push to become an accepted aspect of scientific research and development. That's not to say that the unseen and the unknown should drive science. It's just to say that it should be welcomed into science as a part of the expansion of knowledge. Because once we marry the two, science and spirituality, the sky will be the limit. And then, once we do that, we have to learn to be willing not to know. Not knowing is knowing, Francis Crick says. Just like seeing is not consciousness, and consciousness is not understanding, knowing is not knowing, and not knowing is knowing. The thing beyond that, the thing beyond the veil, is the willingness to not know. Because in the not knowing, the answers live.